Hi everyone, welcome back to Get Bookish. Beck's here today to film a book haul for you. I have not done one of these in a while, but I finally accumulated enough books, in my opinion, 9 of them, to share them with all of you. I've been gathering these since December of last year, so that just goes to show you how much I'm not acquiring books really this year. I'm about to obviously load these books onto my TBR bookshelf, but it has been kind of satisfying to see the shelf space actually growing a bit for once, instead of just constantly trying to slip new books in there. And it's not like I put myself on a book buying ban or anything. It's just how things have worked out this year. But I am excited about what I have to show you, so let's get started. I'll go in the order that I acquired these, so I'll start with the 4 books that I got around Christmas time last year. The first 2 were purchased at a local bookstore. The first one is Agent Sonya, The Spy Next Door by Ben Macintyre. I spotted this book for $8, so that's a win. It looks brand new. Like, I don't think it's ever been read. I don't think it's secondhand, but $8 is a steal. And the reason I was so interested in reading this book is because last year I read The Spy and the Traitor by the same author, and this book was so good, so well written, gripped me, and it was 5 stars as one of the few books that I gave 5 stars last year. And I'd heard that Agent Sonya was another really good one, so this follows a woman who has a husband, has children, and is living in England, and she seems like a very normal woman, but actually she's a Russian spy and she's trying to gather secrets about the atomic bomb. It's going to be a good time, and based on what I read, like my actual reading experience with The Spy and the Traitor, I really hope that I get that with this one, because just the way he told the story, it just makes you want to keep going, keep flipping those pages, read the next chapter, even though the font is like, it's some pretty tiny font in here. So yeah, I'm very happy that I managed to spot this one. The second book that I picked up at that bookshop is Everest, Inc., The Renegades and Rogues Who Built an Industry at the Top of the World by Cockrell. So this is a book that I've had on my Goodreads TBR list for a while, but it had a different cover. So when I spotted this in the store, my brain kind of did this thing of like, is this the book that I want to read? So I had to double check, and yes, it is. It just has a different cover. So was very excited to also spot this one. So pretty self-explanatory with the subtitle here about that commercialization of Everest. I believe it says on the back, yeah, until about the 1980s, it was not very common, and nowadays, like 90% of the people climbing Everest are paid mountain guides and Sherpas, and then the people who are paying them to get to the top. So yeah, the real commercialization of it all, and the people who started that, presumably with good intentions, but things have obviously gotten worse over the years in terms of the trash and whatnot, and just making sure that the amount of people up there is not ruining the environment, which it kind of sounds like it is. So I'm hoping that book does address that as well. I mean, shouldn't really be a story like this without addressing that, but it'll be interesting to see how it kind of all got started. And apparently this does include commentary and thoughts from some famous, like, alpinists, mountaineers, and just kind of people in those circles. So looking forward to finding out more about this. These other 2 books from around Christmas time were actual gifts that I received, and this year my family decided to do something inspired by the Icelandic book flood that always seems to get a lot of attention this time of year. Apparently that's actually just related to like publishers and all of the books that they're putting out there, but there's a lot of reading that happens too. And so for Christmas Eve in the family, we all got assigned somebody else, and we bought them a book, and then we obviously received a book as a surprise from another family member. So my sister's now fiance, they have since gotten engaged, he got me How to Hide an Empire, A History of the Greater United States by Daniel Immerwahr. And what's interesting is I actually had this book on my Goodreads TBR, but he didn't see that. He just had already read this book, thought it was great and like something that I would enjoy. So it was a great choice on his part. So this looks at the American Empire, but through the lens of all of the different places that it did colonize, and sort of how we don't think about it maybe in the same way that we think about the European nations doing it back in the day. So we're going to be looking at things happening on like the Bikini Atoll, Puerto Rico, Guam, and it lists a lot of different places on here and sort of the reasons for why they decided to kind of grab those places as territories. There's going to be a lot of not so great things talked about in this, but I just thought that approach of telling that kind of area of American history would be very interesting. So it was very cool to unwrap this and have this be the book that I received as part of our little book exchange. The final book that I got for Christmas is one that I asked for because it's a beautiful coffee table book, and I picked it up at Indigo to check it out because I wanted to look at the inside of it and noticed that it was 55 Canadian dollars. So I was like, that is a good Christmas gift to ask. So my parents got me Wine Folly. This is the Magnum edition, the Master Guide. It's by Madeline, Puckette, and Justin Hammack, and this is all about wine. So I'm somebody that started to enjoy wine when I was of the right age, so like 18, 19, because you can drink at 19 in Ontario. And so it was very much an acquired taste over time though. Like I started with the Moscatos, like the sweeter wines, and worked my way up to like really enjoying and preferring red wine at this point. And now that I've gotten a little bit older, I wanted to just sort of understand and appreciate what I was drinking when I was drinking it, rather than getting the cheapest thing and just like guzzling it down with friends. Actually appreciating what I'm drinking. And so I thought this would be a really good book for that. It is so well done. There's all of these like illustrations and different graphics to reference, and then it does do a breakdown by different, like it talks about the making of wine itself, wine pairings with food, which to me, that's not as important to me. I'm not like a foodie, but obviously I can understand like you're gonna eat and drink together a lot of the time. And then it does have wines by style. So there's a page for each of like 100 different styles of wine, and then it also does it by region. So these beautiful maps, like this is the Loire Valley in France, and so telling you like what's popular in that area. And so I think over time it would be very cool to try to find a wine that fits each of those 100 styles, so I can make sure that I've tried them at least once in my lifetime. Obviously, there's some that I have definitely already tried and had many times, but there's those odder ones that I think it would be really cool to seek out and see if there's something that I like that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. And of course, this is something that I'm doing over years and years and years. The budget does not allocate for 100 new bottles of wine in 1 year. But yeah, this is such a beautiful book, and I think it will do exactly what I want, which is to just help me understand and appreciate what I'm drinking a bit more. The next book I got as a birthday gift back in April. This is another one that I've had on my TBR shelves for a long time, so I was very excited to have it given to me. And this is a chunky one. It is A Field Guide to American Houses, the definitive guide to identifying and understanding America's domestic architecture by Virginia Savage McAlester. So this is a very like well-known book if you're in these sorts of circles, and this is not something I studied at all, just sort of like an interest that I have in looking at houses, appreciating the design of them, recognizing different elements, and sort of understanding when that house was built and the little bit of the history about it. So I originally actually found an older hardback edition of this book at my university's library, and I really wanted to check it out, so much so that I got an alumni library card just so I could go check out this book. And I very slowly flipped through it over the couple weeks that I had it, and it made me, it like confirmed for me that I really wanted my actual own edition of this. But once again, this is a chunky book. It's not something that I'm just necessarily gonna go out and buy for the heck of it. So I got it for my birthday, which was great. And so yeah, inside there's all these different photographs of houses throughout the United States, and it's broken down by different styles of houses. There's also a huge chunk at the beginning that goes over form and structure and sort of explaining different parts of a house to you with all these different diagrams. So there's a lot of words in here, but there's also a lot of photographs. And yes, if I lived in a perfect world, I would read my way through this book and like really put sticky notes in it and try to understand things and observe what's around me and try to learn stuff. Do I think it's going to happen like that? No, but I can dream that that would one day be what I would do with this book. But in the meantime, I can reference it when relevant and obviously flip through it and appreciate the lovely design and the gift that I was given. This book is actually the one that I am most excited to read in this pile of books, so much so that I did go to the bookstore and purchase the paperback copy myself, and that is Challenger, A True Story of Heroism and Disaster on the Edge of Space by Adam Higginbotham. So this is about the space shuttle Challenger and the explosion that occurred back in 1986. Yes, 1986. So I was not alive at that time, but I am aware of this. I went to Kennedy Space Center last year and I got to see the memorial that they have to the Challenger astronauts, see a couple pieces of the space shuttle that they recovered. And I knew at that point that this book existed because it originally came out in 2024. And I already love books about space, fiction and nonfiction, so it was already sort of on my radar. And then going to Kennedy Space Center and just learning a bit more about what happened and seeing what I saw really made me want to pick this up. And so yeah, once again, in the back of your mind for a long time, and then I finally went and grabbed it. And this is, it's a bit of a chunkier book, but there are a lot of like notes and stuff at the back, so it's more like 450 pages. So I think it's going to be one of those books that even though it's bigger, you fly through if it's the right sort of topic for you. Yes. And this is the author that wrote Midnight in Chernobyl, which was obviously a very popular book. I have not read it, but heard really great things about it, so I trust that this will be well written as well. The last three books in this pile I have acquired much more recently. So earlier in July, I was in the DC, Virginia area visiting my sister, and we decided to go to Old Town Books in Alexandria because she's been there, she liked it, she wanted me to check it out. And in that bookstore, they have a section of $5 books that are damaged somehow, so of course had to look through the pile, and I spotted this book, which never heard of before, but it sounded really interesting, and the damage is like some rips on the dust jacket, so totally worth the $5. So I picked up this book, which has a very long title, so bear with me here. The Long Run, Steve Prefontaine, Frank Shorter, Joan Benoit, I did look that up, she said Benoit, even though I would go Benoit, but Benoit, Greta Waits, and The Decade That Made the Marathon Cool by Martin Dugard. So this is a book about the rise of the marathon as a race in the 1970s into the 1980s, based on stories from these four people who were popular runners at the time. So very, like a kind of a niche thing, but there has been a new rise in running again since COVID. A lot of people got into it, so it's become even more popular. And as someone that does regularly run, I'm sort of aware of things happening in the running world. I'm not like super into it, but I am aware, and I think this would be a cool history to get. And then the other book that I picked up at Old Town Books is one that I've had on my TBR for a while. I spotted it there and it felt like the right book at the right time, and that is You Never Forget Your First, a biography of George Washington by Alexis Coe. So this is sort of a modern biography of the first president of the United States. So there are plenty of biographies out there that are kind of joked about as being dad biographies. They're written by older white men about older white men, and typically older white men read them, right? Whereas when I saw this, I thought this would be a fun way to get more of the reality of what George Washington was like. At the beginning of this book, there's a couple lists for different things. So there's like his life at a glance, like bullet point style. There's also diseases he survived, which I find pretty funny. And then like all the animals that he owned and different, names for, cheeky names and stuff like that. There's a timeline, and then we get into his actual life. And this is a thorough book, but it's not, 800 pages. We're looking at, like a bit over 200 pages. So I feel like that's very reasonable for like what I'm looking for to get some more information without like understanding every little nitty-gritty piece of his life. So I'm excited to finally have this one on my shelves after spotting it online a number of years ago. This last book is one I found at Value Village just the other day, which is very exciting. That book is Policing Black Lives, State Violence in Canada from Slavery to the Present by Robyn Maynard. So I have had this book on my TBR since 2019, which I didn't even realize until I pulled it up on my Goodreads after spotting this. And I was like, how long has this book been on my radar? So yeah, it's been on my radar for 7 years. It was originally published in 2017, and obviously there are things that have happened since then. So this isn't necessarily the perfectly most up-to-date nonfiction book, but I want the history of it as well. And what's important about this to me is that it's about Canada. It's focusing on Canadian aspects of these things, because most of the time I feel like when you see these books, it's about the American side of things. This is a very academic book. I figured it would be relatively academic just based on the title itself, but actually picking it up in person and looking at those walls of tiny text and the amount of references that I can see in there. Yeah, this is gonna be maybe a little bit more challenging for me to read because it is going to be so academic, but I'm just gonna have to think about it a bit more. And I do want to sort of understand the background and the Canadian story of all of this, as it being my adopted country and everything. I wouldn't have learned these things in school growing up at all, right? It's all stuff that I've picked up over time. So I was very happy to spot this randomly in the local Value Village and to now have it on my shelves. All right, those are the 9 books that I have acquired in the last number of months. If you have any thoughts or comments on any of them, you can leave those down below. We also have our Goodreads links in the down bar if you want to go follow us there. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you later.